In 1934, a retired Marine Corps general stepped forward to inform the President, Franklin Roosevelt, that he had been approached by a group of financiers from Wall Street who wanted to overthrow the government. He said that they had informed him that they would have an army of 500,000 veterans to help them. Additionally, he named J.P. Morgan, Grayson Murphy, as well as Gerald C. McGuire, Bill Doyle, who were members of the Connecticut American Legion and the Massachusetts American Legion, respectively, with Doyle being a commander. And they had requested that Butler try to run for national commander of the American Legion. He was also approached by Robert Sterling Clark, an heir to the Singer Corporation fortune, and they had served together in the military. He was called the Millionaire Lieutenant. John W. Davis, General Hugh Johnson, General Harbord, Thomas L. Lamont, Admiral Sims, Hanford McNider. While the media did their best to smear Smedley Butler, Major General Smedley Butler, the committee took it fairly seriously, although they did not call in the rich and powerful men who were mentioned by Mr. Butler. Separately, VFW Commander James E. Van Zant stated to the press that he had been approached by agents of Wall Street to lead a fascist dictatorship in the United States under the guise of a veterans organization. Also, supposedly, General Douglas MacArthur was somehow involved, and he was going to be the backup if Butler declined to become basically the leader of America under a different title. Much more recently, in 2007, there was a BBC investigation that suggested that Prescott Bush, the father of George H.W. Bush and grandfather of George W. Bush, was to have been a key liaison between the 1933 business plotters and the Nazi regime in Germany. That hasn't been substantiated, and I think we don't really know for sure whether Butler was being honest or if he was trying to stir up trouble for people with a great deal of wealth and power who he felt were bad for the country, or maybe for some other reason. But it is something that came to mind today because I'm looking at what's going on in our country. So I want to give you a theoretical situation here. And in that theoretical situation, we will assume that Major General retired Smedley Butler was telling the truth. Now, nobody was charged. Even McGuire walked away. And if that whole situation had actually happened as Major General Smedley Butler described, then that meant that very, very, very wealthy and powerful individuals had actually decided, because Franklin Roosevelt became the president, that they were going to replace him with Mr. Butler. Which means that these rich people, for whatever reason, and supposedly it had to do with it was bad for capitalism to have Roosevelt in office or something like that. Whatever the reason was, if it was true, then we are talking about a planned and failed coup that went unprosecuted, even though the committee, according to some sources, believed that there was some veracity in what he reported to them. So I suspect it's possibly true. And the reason I say that is because McGuire, well, Well, he worked on Wall Street, and I guess he was good at his job. So if he was really good at his job, and maybe he was involved in insider trading, maybe he had been chosen by these men to be the middleman who stuck his neck out. Maybe he was protected like Oliver North was because of the Iran-Contra scandal. Nevertheless, he was the only person called. Why? Well, think of it this way. Everybody else that was listed by Mr. Butler were people who had a huge amount of money and or a huge amount of power, some of them being military figures. So while they felt perfectly fine with interviewing Mr. McGuire, they didn't feel comfortable sticking their necks out to talk to the people who were accused. Now, this is the problem with congressional hearings. They're worth almost nothing because it's not a court of law, and the congressional hearing, if it is dominated by people who have a vested interest in protecting the people who have been accused, nothing will happen. We saw that happen over and over again with the tobacco industry when all the CEOs came forward and one by one denied there was anything dangerous or bad about cigarettes. Well, we all know that's not true. Cigarettes have killed many, many, many people in many different ways and have many toxic chemicals in them. And yet, the Republicans repeatedly protected them from the consequences of their lies because it's not a real court. It's a congressional hearing, and anything can happen. For those of you who have been paying attention, we have an entire government that is dominated by the Republicans and the conservatives. We can't rely on the Supreme Court. We can't rely on Congress, and we most definitely cannot rely on the executive branch. So here's a little theory, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want, and I will be pleased as punch if you do, because you obviously don't know what a conspiracy theorist is. Police are conspiracy theorists. The FBI and CIA, the NSA, and a whole bunch of other groups of people are all conspiracy theorists. And then they prove or disprove the conspiracy theory that they've got. So, yeah, call me a conspiracy theorist. You're just nutty because you don't want to listen. I don't care. Well, that's not true. I do care. I do care about the future of the country. I do care about the future of the masses because we've been led down a very bad road where the rich just keep on getting richer and richer, and the rest of us are going in the opposite direction. Even the people who are earning decent money are earning way less than they should be had Reagan not changed the dynamics of economics along with his co-conspirators when he became president with the BS trickle-down economics, which, if you think about what a trickle means, that means the vast majority of the wealth is up here, and you get these little trickles coming down to the masses. And if you look at the way wages for the top people have changed versus the rest of us, you'll see that trickle-down economics never stopped even when he left office. Never stopped no matter which president was in office. Why? Well, what do you think? One thing that's for certain, with all eyes on all of these people who are defaming Mr. Butler in the media, because of course they controlled the media, they had to be careful. They had to abandon what they were doing that was public enough for people to see, and be very careful that if they were to work on it, that it be done behind closed doors with people that they could trust, and they had to come up with a new plan. And I believe that is most likely exactly what happened. That over the ensuing decades, the elites of America, the oligarchs and the plutocrats, decided that the best thing to do was to engage in a long-term long-term plan that may or may not within their lives come to fruition, but would eventually happen and would eventually allow the wealthy to take full control of this country. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, and it seems like a lot of Americans have not only do the Republicans as a party protect the business class and the rich, they also are pretty much how do I say this? They're pretty much money whores. And some of them spend the rest of their career in Congress or in other offices, and some of them go between Congress and certain industries in a revolving door situation where they work for a company and then they influence legislation and other aspects of the government, and they just keep on going back and forth and keep on turning everything in a direction that favors the rich and disadvantages the rest of us. Now you say, well, that doesn't make any sense. They need us in order to get richer. Well, yes, but they don't need us to be free. They don't need us to have lots of money. They just need us to buy things. And if that means we are servants or even slaves, they probably don't care as a class. Now, I'm not speaking about all people within the top echelons of wealth and power in this country, but I am talking about the ones that would be inclined to manipulate and undermine the government for their own benefit. And that's why I use the term elites instead of the much more vague term them. So what I'm concerned here is what's going on right now. Ever since Trump came on the scene, things have gotten weirder and weirder. And I'm very concerned about the future of our country. People who know me know that I'm very honest and blunt. And they don't always like it, but at least they know what to expect from me. Ever since Trump took office, he has made executive order after executive order in support of Project 2025 and in violation of the Constitution and federal and state laws. Some of these have been struck down by courts, and J.D. Vance is making false claims that judges don't have the right to countermand executive orders. But they actually do. That's part of the job of the judicial system, is to hold the president in check, as is the Congress. But Congress won't do anything. And the Supreme Court, when these things go to the Supreme Court, will most likely side with Trump because they're bought and sold, most of them anyways. We can count on 6 out of 9 of them to throw us all under the bus. And then we've got this special employee who is head of a government agency that is violating laws regulating the power of Congress. He is closing agencies that are the domain of the legislative branch, not the executive branch. He and Trump have cut off funding for Medicare, Medicaid, and a lot of other programs like USAID, and those are the domain of Congress, not the executive branch. The president has the power to say yes or no to a budget plan or to a spending plan, but does not have power to direct the OMB to stop paying something that has been mandated by Congress and approved by any president. That is illegal. We see that Trump has given Musk access to confidential information in the Treasury about all of us, which is also illegal. Many of the federal inspectors general who are watchdogs of the government have been fired by Trump. So who's going to watch the government when the people who were hired to do that have been fired? He has picked cronies, especially rich people, to fill jobs around the government, in the FBI and in the EPA and in so many other departments. And he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. He says he wants to do all these things to help us. But let me ask you this. If they're going to get rid of the subsidies, what about all the small farmers who benefit from those subsidies and voted for Trump when those subsidies disappear because Trump is going to pull the rug out from under them? Well, all those small farmers will go bankrupt, and then the rich people will buy the land and use it for whatever they are going to use it for. And you know what that means for all of those farmers who rely on federal assistance or state assistance, and all the rest of us who rely on things like Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, WIC, TANF, and so on and so forth. It's all going to dry up. And that means everyone will be left to fend for themselves. This has been done in the United Kingdom with really bad results. Really bad results. They call it austerity, but the only people it affects are the regular citizens. It doesn't affect the rich at all because they've got the money. They've got the power. And they're going to do the same thing. Now, here's my big concern. The way that Trump is behaving, it's like he's a fascist. But since his father taught him to be a racist, and his grandfather was a pimp and a slumlord, and his father was a slumlord, and Trump himself was a slumlord and a racist, he's probably a Nazi. And Elon Musk, when he did that thing, that's a neo-Nazi salute. Did you know that Elon Musk came to our country illegally? And yet he fully supports kicking out all the illegal aliens. So we should probably kick out Elon Musk. But that won't happen. He's the world's richest man. Nah. And did you notice how quickly Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos came to Trump's side when he won? Even before he won? Because they're basically rich cowards. They just go whichever way the wind is going to blow. And if they can reap a benefit, and Elon Musk is reaping tons of benefits. He has benefited with billions more dollars since Trump took office. And government contracts that he didn't have before. And confidential information that should never have been disclosed to a man in a position where he has a conflict of interest between his businesses, his wealth, and his job in the government. And the list just goes on and on and on and on. We are going to be screwed out of everything. And we will be pushed into a situation of servitude if we're lucky. I fully believe that all we have to do is look at past and current history. The way that fascists and tyrants in general take over governments. And we can see that this is what has been happening and is being fulfilled now with Trump as president. All the people who voted for Trump, they just wanted a better life. Well, most of them. And the people who didn't vote at all, they made a big mistake. Because they thought, oh, there's going to be another election. But did you know that one of our legislators from Tennessee is trying to pass an amendment to the Constitution so that Trump can run for election again? Did you know that in 2023, Trump gave a speech to the Heritage Foundation, the maker of Project 2025, and did good things? Did you know that one of his men, Russ Vought, who is now part of his government, is part of Project 2025, one of the main authors of Project 2025, and that he confessed to some reporters in a secret meeting that Trump was fully aware and on board with Project 2025. Did you also know that if we get rid of all the illegal aliens and some of the legal ones as well, because they are targeting some people who are here legally, came here on programs from the government, that we will lose a huge base of people who work jobs that Americans just don't want to work. And if we're going to be building lots more housing, that's not going to solve the problem, because at least a third of the construction workers are immigrants, legal and illegal. That means we will have a shortage of construction workers, and it's not something you just pick up in a day. Additionally, our country as a population is aging. There aren't enough people to continue to feed Social Security. And if we kick out all the immigrants who typically have larger families and thus more young people in the country, then we're tipping the balance even further. In maybe 8 years, Social Security won't exist. Or it will be privatized so that Trump's cronies can benefit financially, just like when he put DeJoy in charge of the post office. There are so many red flags, so many indicators. Here is a man who is playing emperor. He wants to take over Canada and Greenland and Panama and Mexico. This man is building an empire. And it's not an empire in which the regular people like you and me benefit. It's like North Korea. It's like Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, and many other countries where the regular people are going to continue to struggle. And if you think you're struggling now, just wait until all of the social programs that protect us from abject poverty are stripped away. Wait and see how many old people will be out on the streets because Medicaid can't pay for them to be in a nursing home. That will include my mother. Who is severely demented. I realize you don't want to hear this, and you don't want to see this, and you don't want to believe this. But what's happening is the death of America as a democracy, as a republic, and the birth of a tyrannical empire in not just behavior, but in acquisition, in treatment of the citizens. And the Republicans, mostly, will do nothing to protect us. And the majority of the Supreme Court will do nothing to protect us. And the executive branch will be cleansed of anybody who is not loyal to Trump. And that, it's bad. I mean, there's no way to make it look any better than it really is. Because all the indications that we are seeing, those of us who are actually keeping our minds open to good and bad possibilities, are seeing the same thing. We're seeing a government that is abdicating itself to the will of the plutocrats and the oligarchs. We're seeing the world's richest man basically taking over the whole government by getting rid of people, by illegally accessing private data, by doing things that what is his job? I mean, other than being the head of Doge, which is, I think they're kind of like their inside joke, because Doge or Doggy is a meme coin or a cryptocurrency that was made as a joke, and it became popular and still exists years later. I think it's an inside joke for them about the real purpose that they're after. Are they really intending to make life better for Christians? Christians have always had a good life in America. Compared to other groups, Christians have had the best life. And while there have been some Christians that have been persecuted, that was by other Christians in almost every circumstance. And the fact that the number of Christians in this country has decreased is because of the problems with Christianity and the problems where the people in power in certain Christian sects protect pedophiles, protect rapists, and do other things that undermine the validity of the religion. Trump, being a serial rapist and sexual abuser and adulterer, doesn't care about any of that. So he will support any sect of Christianity that wants to stand behind him and say, oh, you're the prophet, you're the king, you're the whatever. Because these people, and pardon me, but you live in a world of wishful thinking. You think that some old man who has never demonstrated goodwill towards humans, has never demonstrated respect for women, who has never demonstrated respect for the law, who has never demonstrated that he is honest, who set up the whole TV show that he had as a marketing ploy to make himself famous, and lives by the philosophy of Roy Cohn and Roger Stone, which is lie, lie, lie. And after you're caught, keep lying. Never admit the truth. He is by far the most devious, unscrupulous, dangerous man we've ever had in the White House. And that's saying a lot because we've had some pretty bad scumbags for presidents in the past. So unless everybody gets their heads out of their collective buttholes and starts pressuring the members of Congress that answer to them, Trump will turn this country upside down in search of everybody's pocket change. And then he'll give it to himself and all of his cronies. And Elon Musk, our illegal immigrant turned lord of all things, will be right there with his hand out, because these people don't know when enough is enough. They are mentally ill and incapable of restraining their desire for more wealth and power. That is the definition of a tyrant, or at least part of it. I don't blame all the good people who believed his lies. You wanted something, he gave you what he knew you wanted to hear, and that blinded you to the truth. But you have to wake up now. You have to start seeing the damage this is going to do to our country. The number of people that are going to drop from the middle class, the number of people who are living in poverty already, who are going to be hitting rock bottom. Look at the failures of his previous administration and know that that was nothing compared to what's going to happen this time. He praises tyrants like Putin and Kim and Xi and Erdogan and these other horrible, horrible human beings. When he became before he became president, he went to Zelensky and said, "Don't worry about what I say on the campaign trail. That's just campaigning. It doesn't matter. I'm going to help you end this war." And then after, he went to Putin. Now, the war, will it end? We'll see, but I'm willing to bet that Putin will come out on top. Will the war in Israel end? No, because America keeps on aiding and abetting Israel and letting it commit genocide. It doesn't matter that we no longer have Biden in office. The The Palestinians are going to continue to be persecuted and be murdered by the Israelis, who are going to celebrate it and make fun of it on social media. And the rich will continue to buy all the media companies and all the social media companies until they control the narrative entirely. And then it gets worse. If we don't stop this soon, we won't be able to stop it, and it will make Stalin and Hitler and Mao and all the other despots and criminals that have destroyed countries look good in comparison. Thanks for watching, and I'm hoping for better tomorrow.